And next up, we're going to be checking out the next part of, I can't believe it's not Magick, the Technocratic Union Mage lore from TheBurgerkrieg. Last time around, we got a lot of the history and finding out that it's basically the British Empire, but with magic. And also the entire part of, hey, maybe the entire world being a patchwork of random bullshit is bad, and the people in charge are kind of horrible. So they are not the good guys, but also the other people are kind of worse. It's like they're, oh, are we the good guys? Kinda.
But instead of getting into all that, we should talk about how the technocracy is actually structured and how it works. Though often portrayed as the grand puppet masters that pull the strings of everything that happens, and there is some degree of truth to that, the technocracy does not actually control the world.
Really?
For the most part, the strings that they do have
They probably leave it to the
often
vampires.
don't really work all that well.
What?
They nudge the world around and hope for the best. And not all of the many arms of the Technocratic Union know what the others are doing,
So they fight
much
themselves.
less are pushing or pulling in or from the same direction. The technocracy may appear like an all-powerful entity with infinite resources to an individual within it, but they operate globally. And by that,
Which stretches
I don't
any
just mean
amount down to
everywhere
nothing.
in the world, but everywhere off the world also. The
Not just one
moon,
planet.
the Mars, the fucking underworld where ghosts live, parallel dimensions where unfathomable spirits sort of hang out, the Hollow Earth, or Hollow Earths plural, they're trying to get into that. The
There's multiple Hollow Earths? Of course, if you're talking about multiple dimensions, maybe it could be entirely filled and also hollow at the same time because it'd be based on belief, so overlapping bullshit can probably work.
Technocracy is everywhere, expensive, and in a lot of places it has to be there quietly, even more expensive. They have a Dyson sphere to maintain around Alpha Centauri.
Why?
To be fair, rumor has
That's
it
cool.
that they didn't actually build it, they just found it, which does reduce the upfront cost.
They found a Dyson sphere. That is so many levels of cool. Why is there not a freaking campaign about that?
It
might actually be, for all I
Speaking
know.
of which, this video is sponsored, as always, by my Patreon patrons. This video format, the long form thing, which I actually really enjoy doing, it has brought me a lot
Goddamn.
of success. It's proven itself to be extremely popular among all of you, but it is an order of magnitude more work than how
Found a
I
Dyson
used to
sphere.
do
That is
it,
such
which
a-
means a lot fewer.
No, I gotta go back to that. I'm still found a Dyson sphere. That is 4 words that should define an entire branch of a sci-fi epic. And that's just the background fluff for one of the side slightly evil factions. And there's no way the TheBurgerkrieg doesn't realize how big of what he just said is. Because I see Caliban's War in the background. He has the Expanse books. He knows how crazy that shit can get. If you haven't read The Expanse, it's amazing. I haven't seen the TV show. I've heard it's fine. Never got around to it, but god damn. Why is this the first time I'm hearing about? That is legitimately amazing. Unless it's probably something someone put in there in the 90s. And it's like, ooh, yeah, I saw a Dyson sphere in an episode of Star Trek. That's something cool. Let's leave it in the background. They have one. They didn't make it. They don't have the technology for that because they could solve a lot more problems that way. Is that the way it went? I don't know, but that is just, god. That is a level of proficiency that, okay, they left behind a Dyson sphere. Either they're gone or they're so powerful they're basically wizards and they just do the classic, hey, shotguns for everyone, let's leave them everywhere type wizard. You know, again, the classic wizard.
Videos that I'm putting out, ultimately more content in terms of like minutes and hours that I put out, but it is less videos and I cannot cover as much ground. So I really deeply appreciate the support of all my patrons, and I invite you to, if you can do it, if you have the bucks to spare, maybe chuck me a few to keep these lights on up there, because that'll help me pay the electricity bill. But really only if you like can afford.
It does actually
don't
help a
feel
lot.
pressured into, if you don't have the money, don't do it. The Technocratic Union is a fusion of 5 different large organizations known as the Conventions. These are Iteration
new.
X, the New World Order, the Progenitors, the Syndicate, and the Void Engineers. Everyone
I'm assuming they're all fighting against each other. That makes sense. Ooh, also, Hobbit. This reaction brought to you by Honey. Sign up to... Oh, God, really, Hobbit? For anyone wondering if this ever gets flagged by YouTube, there's not actually a sponsorship here, but that's actually the reading comments section. Oh, God. I've heard a little about the Honey bullshit going on right now. Yeah, that is very much a thing.
One of these conventions has its own culture and its own goals and ideas of how the technocracy should be run. And we're going to be talking about each of them more in detail later. Right now, all you need to know is that each of these conventions is a titanic organization in its own right, and they all work together, ideally playing into each other's strengths in order to get the job done.
I'm assuming when he says working together to get the job done, it's with the small little parentheses underneath it. In the same way, the great houses in Battletech work together. And if you heard me say that and imagine the air quotes around it, congratulations! I think we come to the same conclusion.
You can visualize the organizational structure of the technocracy as like a 5-sided pyramid. And the bottom half of that pyramid is located on the front lines. For most people, that refers to Earth. Some would also say it's places that are just beyond Earth, like the underworld. Really, any place that is like not safe and where the technocracy operates. And then others would refer to that as being behind enemy lines. So really, if you want to be certain that you're trying to get the terminology right, front lines means Earth. Each region of the world is controlled by a so-called symposium, which has the local leadership of all of the 5 conventions coordinating, making decisions, implementing the large-scale technocratic ideas.
And probably backstabbing and generally not understanding what the other side is doing and then doing things that are intentionally stupid or unintentionally stupid. Oh, come on, I've seen enough group organizations in fantasy and real life that I know exactly how this is going to go.
Symposiums can vary in size. They might cover anything from like a major city to a large but sparsely populated geographical area. So London and New York have symposia, but so do Central Australia and the Amazon. They get orders from up high and then implement them on a local level. And also they report everything that happens on a local level up to back on high. Depending on the degree of influence that the individual conventions have in any given region and the needs of that region, the local culture within a symposium can vary also. Often, several symposiums actually coordinate with each other to implement over-regional terranorming and make sure that there's not too much of a disconnect at the borders. Because, of course, because terranorming would be everything kind of generally believing, okay, physics are real, but they change based on random bullshit, like in one place where being a cowboy in a black hat who can't seem to die after he's been shot 30 times in the chest, his arm blown off and he's still standing and ready to go, partner, would not work in places where the idea of a cowboy isn't a thing. So at the edges, it might be like, oh yeah, I'm a great off cowboy, I can stand, walk to the border dead. Yeah, that'd be kind of weird. And would probably break the masquerade, so, well, yeah, functionally a masquerade still. Not the right word, but also kind of correct word. I wonder if they ever have stories about the terranorming actually breaking down between areas. That'd be kind of fun. Every symposium has its own individual needs because it needs to prioritize its own projects. So the reality it constructs will be subtly different, but you don't want to like rip the sheet when you go to the next symposium's area of influence. The individual conventions, and often also several different conventions working together, create so-called constructs, which in Mage terms are equivalent to chantries. They are safe places, office buildings, laboratories, factory halls, bases, whatever kind of stuff that they need, where the local consensus is trimmed entirely to the needs of the mages that live there. I'm sorry, enlightened scientists that live there. Similar to how some castle in rural Scotland, where the stairwells move on their own, might be conducive to the needs of hermetic tradition mages, or how a rooftop
He just talked about Hogwarts, didn't he? I'm a little embarrassed how long that took me to get.
commune might suit the needs of the Sahajia by there being a lot of drugs. Like, seriously, a lot of drugs. Just a ton of drugs. and also beanbag chairs. In these places,
What?
sometimes hidden in or out of plain sight, but always ultimately hidden, technocrats find shelter, equipment, and stage their operations. Agents within the technocracy tend to be part of an amalgam, an organizational unit comparable to a cabal of mages. Like a cabal, an amalgam is a group of agents, sometimes from the same convention, sometimes from various different
So they
conventions.
still cross over conventions,
that work
okay.
together on a project. Unlike a cabal, which is usually a voluntary association, then amalgam, much like most of the things within the technocracy, is very much not voluntary. To its agents, the technocracy is both more and less totalitarian than you think. You're not part of an amalgam because you trust these people and they're your friends, you get along with them very well. Although, for the sake of operational efficiency, management expects you to. Amalgams happen because supervisors are handed down a task and then assemble a team to do the task.
So basically, standard, normal office politics of, hey, you guys, for the next week, we're doing this job. You're going to like each other enough not to commit crimes that will take you away from said job, because we're not bailing you out for a third time this month. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's actually incredibly normal.
They'll look into what agents are suited for it, requisition agents and assets from other conventions as is necessary, whatever they need to do in order to get the job done. Then they put them together, brief them, equip them, and send them out into the field. Amalgams don't necessarily need to stick together for more than a single mission, but supervisors do often find that actually fostering bonds of trust and friendship is good for operational efficiency. This is why, even when an amalgam is not on like a continuous mission anyway, they do tend to be grouped together again on subsequent assignments.
And that also means that in general, it's possible that they are already better at business than most businesses. Office politics done correct. It's like, hey, these guys actually work well together. Let's not fuck around with something that works. Everything I just said, to someone who has not worked in anything like this, would think, that sounds like it's obvious. Why would anyone need to make that a point of comment? To anyone who has worked in any slightly business-oriented setting, everything I just said sounds like a futuristic fantasy of unknowable proportions that you cannot wrap your head around because of the sheer mind screw that you get of thinking, wait, that's a good idea and it makes sense. Why would they actually do that? Yeah, I get that. I really get that. It's weird.
So then they do the job, report to the supervisor reports to the symposium reports to management.
And how does it break
as
down?
You can probably tell, being part of the technocracy involves a lot of paperwork, which is
And if you've ever played telephone, you know how well this goes.
far from the only sacrifice you'll have to make. A quintessential dichotomy within the technocracy is the divide of old life and new life. In the past, when you were inducted into the technocracy as a newly awakened individual, often with the technocracy actually helping along in your awakening process, what would invariably happen is that you would officially die and like disappear completely from your life, your old life, and be entirely banned from interacting with any of that. You would start your new life. You'd be trained in the techniques, instructed on the rules of the technocracy, usually on some sort of space station. Your new life will be entirely within the technocracy.
So old life and new life is literally the congratulations, you now are a mage. You don't get to go back home. On the other hand, going to a space station is, hell, there's a lot of people who would think that that's a nice trade-off and completely worthwhile regardless.
So on one hand, you will never have to worry about bills ever again. On the
You know, they make some very compelling arguments.
On the other hand, literally every single aspect of your entire existence is now controlled by the technocracy.
Is it named Amazon? This joke brought to you by Uncomfortably Accurate Things. Reality. Hi everyone, it's 2025.
Where and how you live, what food you can eat, whom you can socialize with, Of course, obviously, where you work, which assets you own, whether or not you're allowed to reproduce. Nothing is sacred. You are no longer a person. The technocracy is especially controlling of people's personal relationships because they do recognize the need for love and community that everyone has and claim to provide it without prejudice. But they also use it as an incentive and a means of censure. It's not just that you have to reach a certain rank before you're allowed to marry another agent. And then you need extra paperwork to have kids before or after that. I mean,
that last one is pretty much accurate already. You can get kids without paperwork, but you then have a lot of paperwork regardless. There's a reason I don't have kids. Part of it is I have seen the costs and what you have to fill out forms for, and I got nieces and nephews. I have seen what their parents have gone through. There are lines, man. There are lines you do not cross. And you're going to cross a lot of them to sign all of it. Oh, dear God.
not allowed to have them before that, really, unless you literally do not believe in marriage. Even if you want to have just a sexual relationship, you need to ask your supervisor if you're allowed to do that. Anything that might in any way compromise what an agent is capable of doing for the Union is something that the Union has a right to control. This is also why you're pretty much never going to be allowed to date anyone from the outside either. Now, if you turn out to be a competent and trustworthy agent, you will be awarded certain freedoms. You can have a very nice, very comfortable new life, far beyond anything you might have ever dreamed of in your old life. But fuck up and stop towing the line, and they will take all that shit away in a heartbeat.
I mean, yeah, but that's kind of just general life already. You fuck up, you fucked up, and you're done. It's like, on the one hand, it's supposed to make you hate them, but on the other hand, congratulations, you've been booted back down to the thing you were already doing before. It's not that this video isn't doing a good job of showing why they're the bad guys so far. Honestly, actually, never mind. It's doing a horrible job because it sounds like they're over-controlling assholes, but what they're controlling against is actually needing control against it. It feels like they're the good guys who went too far and became the bad guys, but also those bad guys that they were initially becoming the bad guys to stop are still around and could still become a problem. They're just bad. It's gray mentality or morality.
Now, in recent times, as part of the transformation of the technocracy into a new age of the world, many of the old life, new life dichotomies, the hard lines, have been not necessarily disappearing, but certainly getting softer. Because it turns out a lot of people don't want to leave their old lives, or when they have, in their new lives, are too drawn back to them to really operate as efficiently as the technocracy would like.
So, in the pursuit of actually being efficient, they became inefficient and decided to then become efficient by unofficiating themselves to become more efficient. Sure, let's go with this one. And everyone's just making a few, specifically Hobbit is making a few references of random things that might be similar to the technocracy, like the SCP Foundation, the Inquisition, Oni from Halo. I got no idea what those would be. So like any of those are massively popular. I featured them before, but what would those be? I don't even.
There's been a change of sentiment where a lot of management has been finding that this actually costs the technocracy a lot of very capable recruits and penalizes agents that are otherwise very, very good at their job. So yet again, for the change of holy, sacred, sanctimonious efficiency, the technocracy has been changing. In North Africa, there is currently a pilot program where many newly recruited operatives are specifically kept embedded in the communities that they are from. And then those community ties are utilized for the purposes of the technocracy. This has not only proven itself to be rather successful in terms of reducing the...
They just discovered community policing. That's actually kind of hilarious to me. Oh, God.
psychological stresses that agents have to deal with. It's also proven to be a boon to shaping local consensus because people are generally more trusting of what people that they know say as opposed to, strangers outside.
It's the Gandalf the Grey effect. Gandalf's here. What is he saying? As opposed to, ooh, there's a mage doing something horrible. Well, that's evil.
To their community, and it's also made it much easier to identify individuals who are on the verge of enlightenment, which of course in the past was a major advantage that usually the traditions held. Now, a certain degree of fluidity between old life and new life has always been present in the Technocratic Union, and you might think that this is like specifically a hard line for agents who are awakened individuals, but this is not so. Basically, the technocracy employs 3 different kinds of people. The bulk of the organization actually comprises sleepers. Regular people who do.
Okay, that actually is a little shocking to me. Considering it's all about this is magic, I legitimately thought everyone would be a mage. But if that's not the case, are they telling non-mages about mages? Or are they all just hiding it within the internal policies? It's probably going to be an example of him saying it's going to be both. It is shocking, though. I thought it would literally all be mages. Huh. Also, Hobbit 1. Point is, these organizations are almost always made with altruistic goals in mind. People fuck it up, always. We are so good at that. It's a good thing, Hobbit, that's all fiction. And only fiction, and nothing else. Nothing else at all that in any way, shape, or form. This is actually a lot sharper than I thought it would be. 3D print I did on commission. Xenochakrams. They're actually rather sharp. I probably should stop doing them. I'm starting to cut myself. Just not expecting that. Yeah.
Not know jack shit about magic, but are working at some sort of institution that is operated by the technocracy. Sometimes they might even work at a construct, but they will never witness any of the really crazy, wild, hypertech magic shit. The manager of your local bank, the secretary at Cape Canaveral, the janitor at Weird Shit University. Very few of them know about the technocracy at all. And those
so it's in the dark.
Who do are all bound to saying absolutely nothing about it through the magical chaos of the NDA. But they draw salaries from the union, and the union has them on their lists as assets who are sleepers. Then come the extraordinary citizens, which is a sort of catch-all term for individuals inducted into the secrets of the technocracy, or at least some of them. They are the strong shoulders of the organization, the beasts of burden that get the bulk of the hard work done.
So it sounds like what he's leading to is there's the sleepers who work here because they work here, the sleepers who work here because they know what's going on and they're still helping, and the third one would be the mages who actually do shit. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Often the distinguishing characteristic of an extraordinary citizen is that they have the ability to apply some sort of hypertech or any other type of magic, and you might not have heard it because it says this in my script, but obviously you can't see the letters I'm speaking, but I said magic with a C instead of the CK, which usually defines magic in Mage. World of Darkness has 2 types of magic. There is dynamic magic, which we've already talked about. It's the thing that proper awakened mages do, and there's static or linear magic, which is magic that anyone can do if they know how it works.
So it's the difference between writing a programming and pressing start on a program. Oh. Huh. Or I guess copy and pasting a program and then pressing start.
Basically, static magic often violates consensus. But consensus is complicated, and static magic does not exist in defiance of it like dynamic magic does, but as a sort of strand that is woven into the complex tapestry that is consensus. So if you know about and understand the enormously complex body of knowledge and skill set that is required for alchemy, fortune-telling, and spirit communion, or in the case of the technocracy's extraordinary citizens, plasma weapons, cybernetics, and faster-than-light engines, you can manifest those effects even when you are not awakened. Tremere blood magic, for instance, is a form of static magic, and some people might argue that all of the vampiric disciplines are static magic, but that's kind of a dubious statement. Unlike
I wonder if he's done a thing on vampires already, got more into that. Because from what I heard, I thought the if blood magic is what the vampires do and it's all static, it would be a type of magic. But didn't he earlier say that vampires were all sundered from even the possibility of awakening because of their condition? This is one of those things I wish I knew more about. And it's also entirely possible this might be one of those instances of, yeah, but let's not look at it too hard, because the answer is going to be whatever the audience and or DM wants it to be. And, that makes sense, because the DM is right is probably one of the best rules you can have in most games anyways.
Like dynamic magic, the effects you can achieve with static magic are very clearly defined and not flexible in any way at all. The skills do not translate to related fields. They have very particular rules, and you need to follow those rules precisely in order to achieve the effects that you want. It's like learning to play a particular song on the piano, as opposed to playing, like, just the piano as an instrument. Being able to create new songs or improvising on the fly. And much like songs are created by people who know how to play the instrument or how to make the music, any discipline of static magic will have been created by practitioners of dynamic magic that have practiced that dynamic magic in the same way enough times, and enough people have witnessed it for it to become accepted as consensus. The traditions call these types of people hedge mages or sorcerers, and they kinda look down on them, which the technocracy usually prides itself on not doing.
But...
And they don't as much, but they kinda still do. Which...
So in other words, it's, we're better than you, but also we're literally doing the same thing, but less! So it's literally the participation award. And you win it because no one else participated. Progress! This usually helps to
stupid on
find.
both sides, really, because sorcerers can be immensely powerful. And the great advantage of extraordinary citizens, of course, is that you can always just make more of them by teaching more people the right things.
Oh, so it is teachable. It's not an inherent thing that just leads into pre-sorcery. It's actually something teachable. Oh, that's kind of fascinating.
And in a way, you can do static magic too. You can operate a computer, a microwave, drive a car.
That last one is a flat-out lie. And if you're wondering why I'm saying that, go outside and drive for 5 minutes and see how many times the phrase, "What are you doing? Just freaking use your blinkers. Why are you on that side of the road? You're not supposed to go that way. I don't even know how you're going backwards." If any of those phrases have come out of your mouth, you know why everything he just said is not true. No one knows how to drive. There is no one who knows how to drive. We are all deluding ourselves. We're all just a bunch of monkeys pressing the buttons, trying to see what the big number does. And may or may not be throwing our poo at people when we drive around. But I'm not saying I've done that, but they're never going to catch me because the evidence was way too disgusting to save.
Do all kinds of stuff that once upon a time was only possible to practitioners of enlightened hypertech. That doesn't necessarily make you an extraordinary citizen, though, because this isn't exactly how that is defined. You'd also be an extraordinary citizen if you had some sort of psychic powers, like a telekinesis, fucking the mind control, anything you've seen Professor X do in X-Men.
So if an extraordinary citizen is everything that a awakened mage could do, that's basically vulgar, but is understood, but you cannot reach even the sorcerer level or the hedge mage status by doing those things if they become common enough, does that eventually mean that the sleepers will eventually have so much access to rote magic that they don't even realize that they're sorcerers themselves? It's kind of like the old phrase of rising water lifts all ships, except unlike every time where that's used as complete utter BS, it works? Huh.
Because apparently the psychics that just have inborn psychic abilities are just also a thing in World of Darkness. I found this out very recently. If in a purely theoretical scenario that definitely has never happened in any way, shape, or form, you were to be a vampire who works for the technocracy and knows about the technocracy, you would be considered an extraordinary citizen. Even if you didn't understand any kind of weird high-tech, hypertech type of stuff. But you still know about the technocracy, you still work for the technocracy, like say you're like some sort of super hardcore commando soldier who uses guns and explosives to kill aliens on the front lines. You'd still be an extraordinary citizen, and there's actually plenty of these types of extraordinary citizens.
Now I'm just wondering if the technocracy is fighting wars against aliens by drafting vampires. I'm pretty sure that's the plot of not Blood the Last Vampire, not Blood Sea. It's the one with Cain and Abel going to Mars. I don't remember the name of that anime, but it's from the 2000s.
And of course, finally, the third type of person that the technocracy employs are mages, people who do enlightened science. And the place where the hard old life, new life line is drawn can be different for all of these categories of people depending on where in the technocracy they work. For instance, within the Syndicate, even the awakened, enlightened scientists usually remain the old people that they used to be and retain the old contacts they used to have because that's very useful to the kind of work that that convention does.
But
the Void Engineers are going to take you to outer space. So even if you're like a sleeper who works in a facility that facilitates that kind of thing, you might disappear from your old life entirely. The upper
So it literally depends on which convention you're in. If you're in outer space, you're not going to have a life. But there's probably a lot of people who that would be a benefit more than a downside.
portion of the pyramid where everything converges is known as management. If you're an agent, you write reports for your supervisor, who writes reports for the symposium, which writes reports for the labyrinthine architecture of hierarchy that is management.
And that's not even taking into account if they're writing so many reports about so many things, they're probably trying to make it super tech. So there's probably someone in the background entering old reports from hundreds of thousands of years, or hundreds to thousands of years. And they're just entering them or scanning them and trying to digitize them and then making sure it's not getting corrupted because their super tech's probably advanced beyond the super tech they understood when they started it. More bureaucracy. Oh, God.
And the thing about management is that it's almost entirely not located on the front lines, meaning they hang out in space. We've talked before about constructs. There's also something called horizon constructs, which is similar to a horizon realm for mages. So even though kinda every technocratic base where consensus is suspended for the sake of enlightened scientists is a construct, when technocrats refer to constructs, they actually usually mean horizon constructs, which are the space stations. They're usually out in the Umbra, in a sort of Earth's orbit type Umbra, in the like very borderline fine reality region, able to maintain.
So it's space stations outside of main reality. Oh.
Communication, but still hidden through hypertech. And they don't just house the upper floors of the technocracy. Horizon constructs are also the places where most agents live, train, socialize. That doesn't mean you take a rocket ship to work every day.
That'd be cool.
There's like quantum tunneling passageways within constructs that will
Magitek. Hyper Magitek. Yeah, I kinda get it.
will take you there. Much less of a hassle. Every Horizon construct is
Definitely not
different in
teleporting.
terms of its culture, its layout, obviously, the way it's designed. And it highly depends on who's in charge of that construct and what kind of operations are being performed there. And so no matter how nice a Horizon construct might look, make no mistake, the technocracy is always totalitarian. It's just sometimes wearing a friendly face. Never forget this. It's everything terrible about corporate culture and military culture mixed together and distilled. Technocratic agents are treated like machines. Supervisors often have to fight senior managers in order to get like R&R, leisure, and recovery time for their agents. And
Wait, they can do that? Unironically, that's... He was like, oh yeah, it's the worst thing about corporate and military structure. But then, oh no, they have to fight to get R&R. And I'm just thinking, wait. They're able to fight and they can get those things. That is kind of shocking. I'm used to the, congratulations, here's the hours, here's the you get no benefits. Fuck you. The fact that they can get that means that he's kind of contradicting himself here. I mean, he might mean fight literally, and he probably means that they, when they fail, is literally die. But this is way better than I was expecting. I mean, the bar was low, but that's still more than I thought.
Depending on the convention, making the argument that they need rest and recovery maintenance like machines is actually going to be a very good line of reasoning.
That's literally why the 5-day work week exists, because the reasoning was people would be more productive if they had time to rest, relax, and not get burned out, because of studies showing productivity things. So the treating people like a machines thing is not new. It's why current things in life are actually done.
To the Technocratic Union, you are an asset, an investment, and they need to get the most out of you.
See, this is completely unrealistic. Treating actual employees like assets is not how most companies do it. Unfortunately, they should, and it would probably be better for them in the long run book-wise, but a lot of them is less you're an asset and more you are an expense, and we need to get more out of you to try and fix that. It's a small difference, but it is one that unfortunately is not a joke.
To fulfill their sacred mission. As an enlightened agent, you are not a person, you are just an incredibly valuable asset. Even in the most liberal of Horizon constructs, where you get to spend 3 days a week frolicking in the park with exotic dreamt up animals, your every action, your every word, maybe even your every thought is being monitored. And if
So basically modern life. Got it. Oh, and Blue Hush mentioned that's basically Japanese companies. Honestly, yeah, the Japanese black companies, I've heard the reputation about them. Niji Sanji. Yeah.
management is of the opinion that there is something a little bit amiss, you might find in your day planner a little appointment to a place called Room 101 for a spot of the all social processing. But if we're entirely honest, most of the really upper management, like the great old men, the truly enlightened masters, they exist way further out than just Earth's orbit. And so a super important factor as to whether and how management actually influences your particular chronicle is whether or not and how the dimensional anomaly happened in your chronicle. If it didn't happen, maybe the same entities are still in charge. Or maybe they aren't, but for different reasons. As much as the technocracy would like you to believe that there is a singular tip to the pyramid, there really isn't, actually. That's not a thing. No one, perhaps not even leadership itself, can tell you what exactly leadership looks like. There is one particular...
I mean... Do I need to say it? Do I really need to say it? But he's just... Can you imagine working at a place where you've never seen the people in charge and you're not even sure they're still alive and may or may not have found out that at some point there was a funeral, but no one actually realized it was there, so they just kept doing things like normal without realizing? I mean, that would be crazy. Why is this starting to sound way too mundane? I mean, I get that's the internal humor, is that they're super evil by being the mundane bullshit while also being magic. But at the same time, wow, that's, it's not even on the nose. It's like, it is just the nose itself.
The manifestation. There's a lot of rumors, theories, and babbling about it, especially among the lower ranks, that does tend to have supreme overriding authority over everything. I am talking about control with a capital C. Control usually manifests as a human of some race or some gender. It really depends on the encounter. Wearing a white suit, and then they just sort of give orders. If you're not top tier management, you will pretty much never encounter control. To the extent that even most middle managers don't, really believe that control exists. But there are instances of control appearing to even the lowliest of field agents. Or even the secretaries of enlightened agents who think they're working for some sort of law firm. They've never heard the word technocracy in their life. And nobody knows why control does this. Though control's...
Is control literally just God? Because that's kind of the way people describe him in the most modern media. Just random person in a white suit. I'm looking at you, Bruce Almighty, but still. Huh.
Authority is compelling and absolute. It does tend to be a bit more gentle than certain other, elements of management in the way it gives orders, a little more respectful. Now, depending on how you run the dimensional anomaly aspect of your chronicle, control might be around or it might not be around. If the dimensional anomaly happened, probably not, but maybe if you feel like it's a necessary element for your chronicle, put it in there. The main thing though is if the dimensional anomaly happened in general, most of especially senior upper management will have been cut off from the rest of the pyramid, disappeared in the wherever. The more severe the dimensional anomaly was, the more horizon constructs were lost in the process. If it's still ongoing, there might actually not be any viable horizon constructs in your chronicle at all. In the standard middle-of-the-road scenario, most of the upper-middle management type people are present on the near-Earth horizon construct space stations. Some of them surviving, others rebuilt, a very few built anew. And so, in this scenario, a major problem continues to present itself.
By that logic, wouldn't that also imply that there's scenarios where you have two overlapping realities where one has it still going on, one has solved it, and maybe throwing a third that hasn't even started yet, and you're going to is this time travel, or are we just looking at alternate realities and oh shit? Yeah, there's probably someone who's running a game that way, but it sounds super complex.
The people in charge of the Technocratic Union are utterly out of touch. And by that I mean both.
Yes, can you imagine people in charge of a corporate entity being out of touch? Why is this video relatable? Stop making it relatable. I don't like that it's relatable. Stop making sense. I want my fantasy not to make sense. Thank you very much. Oh God.
With reality and the lower steps of the pyramid. There is perhaps an irreconcilable schism between the ideals of management and the realities of working in the field. According to management, there is no ambiguity in the world. Everything is either consensus appropriate or reality deviance. There is only adherence to protocol or failure. Bending the rules to get the job done is not possible. This is not a scenario that ever occurs. Management is in the business of making reality, and if reality does not perfectly align with the thing that they have in mind,
they will ignore it and pretend it already was that way. Because it doesn't matter how much your plan breaks if you pretend whatever happened was your plan all along. I could say the same thing I've been saying every other step of the way. Is this seems really relatable. Management claiming it was all normal and nothing's going on here. There's nothing to see here. At this point, though, I'm just a broken record on this. It sounds too normal.
It's because of the incompetence of the field agents. This is one of those inherent contradictions within the technocracy. Mages are defined by their ability to bend reality to their preferences. And bending reality to a certain preference is exactly what the technocracy is doing by shaping consensus. Technocratic leadership is composed of visionaries in this regard, and not only do their visions of reality not align with each other, they certainly do not align with consensus. For many mages, actually, there comes a point where they reach a level of self-actualization where they cannot live on Earth anymore. They need to make their own horizon realms with their own rules that accord to their worldview, because if they stepped on Earth, Paradox would pretty much immediately rip them apart.
Yeah, and that's why upper management lives off Earth and becomes out of touch, because they have their own realms. Even though they're scientists, theoretically, if you played a game where the technocracy was more successful, can you make it that management came back to Earth? But then because they were just close enough that they could see how out of touch they were, but while still being in touch enough that they wouldn't destroy them from Paradox? Oh, that would be a really interesting one.
Enlightenment enlightened masters of the technocracy have the option to exist in worlds where all of the work that they envision the organization doing is already done. In fact, they have to exist in those places. So why would they not go there? Especially if they are aware that their presence at the front lines might cause disturbances in reality that would not be particularly beneficial to the mission of the technocracy. The problem is that the places they do hang out adhere entirely to the rules of reality that they envision. To have the kind of power they have, they must believe in those things very strongly, and they are never confronted with any contrary facts. Things function very neatly in the theories they have.
So basically he's talking about they are so powerful, they're shown what they want to believe and only live in their bubble, because in this case, it's a literal bubble. How old is World Darkness? Because what they're saying right now, I wasn't certain this was from the 90s or maybe earlier for all I know, this would basically be a social commentary out of Black Mirror, except it's not. It just happened to turn uncomfortably close to one. Oh, God.
On how things should work. They require sometimes only a tiny adjustment in how you view the world. But only in that sterile context, because on the front lines, these things often represent fundamental shifts in reality itself. The theory may say that something is there, but it just isn't. And to management, this usually means that the field agents failed to look hard enough for it. This promotes a sort of gradient of out-of-touchness and deception the farther up you go the pyramid of management. An honest supervisor that informs management about why their plans cannot work is not going to get very far.
In other words, they do the good old-fashioned business approach of lying to your boss who you know will never actually find out or bother to look. And according to Siren, it started in 1991 to 1996. And that'd be Ned Wazinski who mentioned the 96 part. Huh. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to This is Just Black Mirror in writing format. That makes sense.
If you want to make it in the technocracy, you need to indulge management. In a sense, ineffective operations and making shit up in the interest of placating the visions of reality that management has is a much quicker path to promotion than actually trying to suss out why the idea that they had did not work. This creates a set of systemic conditions that inherently favors self-interested leaders that want to grow only their own power to the detriment of everyone else.
Wow. People being promoted because they tell management what they want to hear, and management promoting the people who tells them what they want to hear rather than actually finding out if anything's working, because it's easier to believe your own lie than anything. Only made worse by the fact that mages literally live in their own actual bubbles that conform to their own delusions, so they don't have to acknowledge reality outside of themselves. I am so glad this is fiction. I was not expecting this to be so freaking hard to get through. But damn.
And have very little in the way of moral convictions when it comes especially to social manipulation. Petty authoritarians who delight in having power over others, punishing people for sport, keeping them in line with fear. There's another type of leader, one you will find only rarely in the technocracy. These are empathetic paragons who inspire actual loyalty in their subordinates, who treat them with respect.
And probably get killed off by the other ones. Just like, wait, you're going to tell them what? No, don't let them know about this. Oh, God. Also, Hobbit 1, thank you very much. Okay, I believe whoever wrote this spent way too long working in an office environment. I have no idea what you're talking about, Hobbit. I'm not going to acknowledge anything I agree with on that. Any of it, no.
and compassion because they understand that they are as accountable to their subordinates as they are to the people that give them orders. In an organization like the Technocracy, which is ruled by the first type of leader, the second type of leader
Is a threat.
almost never going to get promoted. It threatens the leadership of the petty authoritarians by being, uncontroversially, more effective. It is just an objectively better leadership style that inspires actual loyalty.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to TheBurgerkrieg accidentally describes basic workplace understandings of how things actually happen. You know, if you just took the technocracy part of it, you just cut that one section here, this would feel like cutting social commentary, except he's going through the lore of a science fantasy franchise from the early to mid 90s. For everyone out there who's listened to this and started thinking of specific instances where you know this happens and it's so incredibly relatable that you're absolutely pissed right now. Hi, welcome to the I'm Still Repressing These Memories Right Now Club. We can all join together for a cost of don't even think about it, and maybe indulge in alcohol is a good solution because there's really no way this is going to get fixed, because in a D&D or Mage setting, yeah, you can set up a campaign to fix this, but then you have to come back to your real life where it's like, yeah. Where's the alcohol again? I am apparently much too sober for this video. Was not expecting that. And I'm very much regretting it.
Real respect, not just respect based on rank, but respect based on the person. These are the types of leaders that you would go the extra mile for because you know they would do the same for you. And if you're a fucking asshole sociopath piece of shit, you're not going to promote people like that, because if they climb in rank, if they accrue more power,
then the people above them might realize, hey, they're more effective and they're saying different things than you.
they might become a threat to you one day. Wow, what a fucking really fictional thing that is completely made up and not in any way an extremely accurate representation of much of the culture of today. And also,
I'm glad. I'm so very, let's use the word glad right now that TheBurgerkrieg understands my thought process on this one. Yeah, this fictional setting is it's really out there, man.
so for many decades and centuries, this is a fictional thing that isn't.
It's not in any way, shape, or form the basic outline to every political thriller ever set in any time period, from insert Gilgamesh probably had to deal with till now.
Real. This is just one of the perennial big organization problems that plague the technocracy. Here's another one. If someone is always promoted when they do well, the place that they ultimately will get stuck at is going to be the place in which they were the least good. Because
At this point, my entire goal is just to make it literally the next minute. Sorry, not even the minute. The next 53 seconds. And I'm not sure I can.
Because once they're no longer extremely good at their job, they're stop
bad.
getting promoted. Everyone is promoted just beyond their degree of competency. On the other hand, many incompetent people often get promoted up and away because, you know, if they're not doing the actual work, maybe they will be less damaging to the organization.
Just strong enough that, you know, you don't want to get rid of them, or can't, but just bad enough that you want someone else to deal with it.
This then leads to some people doing deliberately shoddy work because they think this will get them a better paid and privileged position.
Or worse, they don't realize it's shoddy work because one is bad and just abusing the system. The other thinks they're doing a good job. How much longer? Just 20 seconds. Just 20 seconds. I can make it 20 seconds. You ever get that feeling of absolute and utter rage and despair at the state of a fictional universe that you just feel like your stomach is wishing you were having stomach pain, so you say, well, I'm having a heart attack, let's go to the hospital. Then you realize, no, you actually feel fine, you're well rested for once, you have plenty of caffeine, but not too much so you feel jittery, and you're actually in a really good mood, and then you're just regretting it because you don't have an excuse to literally run away screaming. I'm sure no one here has experienced that. Definitely not me either.
Technocracy has the fewest issues with this last problem, but even in spite of their very complex review standards and a system that actually kind of works in that regard, it still comes up. But okay.
God damn you, TheBurgerkrieg. You son of a bitch. You did a real good job talking about this entirely fictitious place that doesn't exist and is not normal. It's a good thing when we put up a goal, it wasn't a try not to cringe challenge, because I would have failed so hard right now. Yeah, that was the Technocracy and their inherent issues of why things are bad for them, and they're the bad guys. You know, in a Magick setting with vampires and mages who destroy and distort reality based on their preferences. They are horrible because of being people. I was not expecting this to be the video that made me feel like I need to take up alcoholism as a hobby. But it was, and now we're here. So for everyone watching, thanks. This is a thing that I'm now going to try and repress. But also I'm still looking forward to finding the other things that hopefully won't involve this part. So yeah, thanks everyone. I'll see you in the next one. And I may or may not be sober for it. And judging by my lack of remembering how much other videos needed me to not be sober, I will still be sober and I will regret that. You know, the less healthy choice. Yeah, honestly though, joking aside, I'm really appreciating TheBurgerkrieg going into so much detail about how things are happening and the various interactions and showing that you could get worlds after the cataclysm or the bullshit outer space stuff that can rip away all the horrible stuff. You're just left with the what the fuck is going on. And it could be interesting to have a post-apocalyptic essentially pile of the Technocracy that actually are still trying to do good, and maybe things are massively their own thing to the point where Technocracy is a tradition in its own right, which would be fascinating if they then came into contact with management earlier and it'd be like, oh yeah, this is funny. I don't know. But it's fun to think about all of that as opposed to the reality of it, which is this is a thing. Yeah. It is a thing that I'm not going to think about anymore. So for everyone watching, thanks. And if you now also need to go bash your head against a wall like someone else who may or may not be taking a small break from the video to do that, just remember, bash your head responsibly, kids. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.